What I have in mind is just essentially the contracts can go in 1,000 different ways, right? From explaining them to your consumer, to strategies around when we ask them to sign contracts, to whether we have them sign them in writing or online, to how we present them to the other agent, how things are negotiated, best practices. We can go in a lot of different directions. We could do a little case study if you guys have had a particular scenario that you'd like some analysis on. Since it's a bit of a small group today, I want to, I want this to be as valuable as possible for you specifically. So what were you hoping to get out of this morning from a contract mastermind perspective?
Negotiations, I guess the back and forth mechanics of the negotiation part. I've had experience with the signing part where agents will put in the part of remarks, do not do DocuSign for them. Make sure you do a send over PDF. At first I thought that was odd because it's so much easier to do it the other way, but then I realized when you send it over that way, if you send it wrong, they're forced to sign it before they can even review it. That's been my experience. So
well, you don't necessarily have to sign it before you review it. You open it up to sign it, and it's sitting there, and you can review it prior to signing. I'd say that the challenge with, just real quickly to give you a quick response to that is, I think the reason why the people would say that is it has nothing to do with efficiency. It has to do more with privacy. So for example, if I'm going to put somebody else on the loop that's not my client, then I'm going to need their email. So for example, the other agent might want a little bit of, I don't want to say filter, but they may want to kind of deliver the news in a way where they get to deliver the news, right?
Totally agree.
And they certainly don't want to give their client's email address to me so that I can put it in the loop and make it nice and simple, right? That's not my business what their client's email is. I don't even want that awkwardness created or alluded to. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
By the way, that's why on the purchase and sale agreement, I think there's one financing agreement that's like this too, where it always says like, the buyer's name and then buyer's address, buyer's email address, buyer's cell phone number, all that stuff. Do not put that on there. That is not necessary for a contract, and it is not the other party's business, the methods of reaching your specific client. Okay, if they want some information passed along to your client, they communicate it through you. That is what you do. You are the that is exactly what you are. Make sense?
Oh, it does. I definitely don't put that on there.
Okay, it does pre-populate though, so don't be afraid to go in and delete it. Like it might pre-populate your buyer's email address or mailing address or cell phone number. I do not want, the buyers and sellers do not talk. If y'all want to speak to each other, you go through me, or you go through the other agent, which is going to go through me anyway. Make sense?
Yes.
Because I can create whatever reality I want to create around the negotiation, right? So yes, my client might be prepared to respond immediately, but there might be some additional or kind of reason why I might want to delay it, right? Or there might be a reason why I want to respond faster, or I might, not pick up the phone in the middle of negotiation so that they leave a message and I can hear the way they're communicating. Are they really stressed? Are they really happy? Are they really sad? Right? Are they speaking with a lot of energy? Are they speaking with not a lot of energy? Are they rambling? Sometimes when you let somebody leave a message, they start rambling and then they tell you things they shouldn't tell you, right? Oh my gosh, I've spent the last 3 hours working with my client to get to this point. If you guys can get to this, we got a deal. I've done the best I can. That sounds a lot different than my client's response is, or just flat out emailing it to them with no context. Does that make sense? In a world that is very hyper focused, it seems like, on speed and efficiency and I'll say lack of communication. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is, like, if I've got a message that I want to send to Candace, I can send it by email and it'll have no context, meaning the other party can determine the context, whether it's accurate or not accurate. The other solution, and that's oftentimes not going to work out in my favor, or I can create whatever reality I want around that data, and then I get an opportunity to feel it out. Like, there's been many times where I've called my client and I say, okay, I think I can get more than what they're asking for. Can I get a little flexibility from you? And they're like, yeah, we'd be willing to pay 300, but if you can figure out anything better, let me know. Right. So I'll be ready to verbally negotiate it, knowing that if I can get to 300, my guy's fine, but I might not start at 300, right? They may come out and say, oh my gosh, my client is so ready to get this over with, they'll pay 290. I said, great, 290, I think we got a deal. And I
Right.
call my client back and I say, hey, guess what? I just saved you $10,000. See what I'm saying? So if I can get a little bit of leeway with my client, then I can determine how I'm going to approach that negotiation, that conversation, based on what I'm learning about all the other people that are involved. Y'all follow that? Lorinda, did that address your question, not address your question? I know I kind of went off on a tangent there for a second.
No, it did address my question. Can I have that addressed my question on that issue? The other comment. Well, the follow-up is just, you may touch on this in a second, but the follow-up is just the negotiation part. So I'll go mute. So the question is, my client over the weekend, we finally got the counter back from the seller. The seller said that she was under contract for 148. We were asking, they offered to give us $4,000 and no repairs. Well, what she was asking for was a new roof, HVAC, grading, because there's water flowing.
You're the buyer side or you're the seller side?
I'm the buyer side.
And you okay, so I'm possibly jumping the gun here, but your buyer should know that they're not probably going to get a new roof and all that other stuff they're asking for, right?
I told her that. I did tell her that.
I'm just making
yes. Because when she started telling, we went through a 165-page inspection report. Before we even started, I said we need to only go for the things that are crucial for you, that you're not getting A, B, and C up front. I told you, you're not getting a new roof. They're not putting a new roof on there, and if you think that's a deal breaker, we need not counter this and just terminate. So she said, okay, well, let's ask anyway.
I don't believe we will get a new roof. And my recommendation is that we focus on a couple of other important things. But I've been fooled before, right? So if you get the feeling from the other side that there's flexibility, don't ever don't ever recommend canceling the contract before you even ask. I'd ask way before I cancel the contract. I just I'm in the middle, just as a little side point. It's interesting it comes up this morning.
Yes.
Guys, I'm in the middle of listening to this book called High Performance Habits.
Yes.
It is literally the best book I might have ever read. It is so good. And one of the things that they say in this book is that people just flat out don't ask enough. And they found that people were hesitating for asking what they wanted for. And it turns out that if they ask, they get what they want, like they get the result that they want 3 times more than what they would have expected. So don't be afraid to ask. And even if you're doing things like, this is the part I'm kind of right in the middle of, but people, they enjoy the relationship in the present, your presence more when they do things for you. So for example, there's things like, for example, like if somebody says like, oh, could I get would you like a glass of water or something like that? Or can I get you something, while you're sitting there at the listing presentation? Just accept it, right? Let them get you something. Let them get you a cup of water or a cup of coffee or whatever. Because once they do that for you, psychologically, they have a different appreciation for you. They enjoy your company because you've allowed them to give something to you. Does that make sense? So have them do little favors.
Yes.
If need be, right? Hey, I'm going to tour the home. If you could fill out this little questionnaire here, right? And the questionnaire has things like, details about, their motivation or improvements that they've made in the home or the ways they like to be served. Oh, that reminds me. We're getting on like a tangent of a tangent, but I promised you guys this a long time ago, and I was never really able to find a great way to put it, and I saw it yesterday. So the top 20 had a business planning thing the other day, and actually Heather Hare had this question on her sign-in. Okay. And it says, so that our level of service best matches your expectations, how would you best describe yourself? And they give 4 choices. And you tell me what you've determined from listening to these 4 choices. Okay. Bottom line, born salesperson, family and friends are most important, number cruncher. What does that tell? What does that tell you?
She used the dis. She used the dis.
Yes. So there's let's talk about what do we know as a result. But when the person fills this out, we know what their leading thing is, right? And so for those that are not familiar with DISC or not familiar with what's happening here, they just blindly fill it out, and Heather would have a much more clear picture of how to communicate with them, right? And I've bet, like, if I was given this, just me personally with the experience I have, if I was given this, I'd call her over and said, Heather, this is freaking brilliant. Where do I sign? Right? If I know what it is, I'm so impressed. If I don't know what it is, then I answer the question according to what the person wants me to do anyway. Y'all follow that?
Will you post that, Bill?
Of course. Yep.
Yes.
Right. And it even has this space for the spouse or significant other. So the one person fills it out, the other person fills it out. Remember, opposites attract, right? So like I tend to be, my wife and I are exactly opposite. I am generally a DC, which is give me the facts and give them to me fast. My wife is, I don't care about the facts. I just want to have a good energy and talk. And I care a lot about people. Not that I don't care a lot about people. It's just I care about getting it done first, generally. You see what I'm saying? So I want information a certain way. And my wife, who is my partner, right, the one that's going to make most of the decisions, is the other way. So you have to figure out how do you communicate to each one, and you better be able to do it quickly. Does that make sense? Well, guess what? The other party is also has personality profile. The other agent also has a personality profile, right? So you can kind of figure out how you need to interact with the other side by understanding more about how they're speaking or what words they're using or how quickly they talk, or maybe even things like what their Facebook profile looks like, or the things that they wear, a lot, the car that they drive. There's a lot of different clues. Does that make sense? All right, I'm sorry I cut you off. Lorinda, let's try one more time. What was your follow-up to the follow-up?
The negotiation process, they know you go back and forth until one person, like, lack of a better word, agrees or agrees. Let me use agrees.
Wait, you're really fuzzy. Say that one more time. All right, we might have to come back to that. What?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, say it one
I
more
said I was
time.
working to come up with. I was like, I was wondering why you keep negotiating until everyone comes into an agreement. How do you gently tell your client the politically correct way you do it? You answered that question about how you tell your client to be realistic with some of the things that they're asking for when you're going through the inspection report.
How do I?
But you answered it.
How do I?
Mine was a little rough. Well, set the stage and then convey it. My answer was a little rough, but you kind of softened it up a little bit. So I have a better understanding of what I should have said and what I need to say in the future.
Wow.
So you did answer that question.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
You did. You made it politically correct.
I mean, you just
From
have
what I
to,
said.
you have to think about it for a second. Let's say that I'm representing a buyer and I'm one of 15 offers on the property and I'm willing to pay over list price for the property. I'm not saying, again, that doesn't mean that I'm willing to overpay. It just means that I'm willing to pay more than the other people, right, who are also interested in the property. And so the idea is, if I'm willing to pay, especially when we used to do a lot of these escalation clauses, it's like I will pay $3,000 higher than the next offer as long as it doesn't go over 310, right? And then let's say I win and that causes me to be at 306. And then I get the inspection report back and it needs like a new air filter in the HVAC system. Like, I'm not getting that. Because if I was the seller, I'd be like, wait, a week ago, you're willing to pay $4,000 more for this property that you don't have to pay for. You can fix your own outlets. You see what I'm saying? But, however the seller responds could cause the other party to leave. They have to be prepared for that, right? So it's kind of this idea of like, at the end of the day, yes, the market will dictate how far each of the parties has to go. But once the home is officially under contract, you generally see both sides like kind of soften a little bit, right? Now they've kind of moved into the, okay, I'm getting the loan and I'm dealing with the attorney and I'm setting up the closing and I'm hiring the moving trucks and all these kind of things. And some of the things that seem to be super important to them prior to the contract are a little less important now, right? And so if, there's a, little piece of wood rot or something like that around the house, and the buyer knows that there's 15 other offers and it went under contract in an hour, they're probably not going to get that fixed. But it is worthwhile to share those expectations at the beginning and then remind them along the way. The one other thing, just as a side note, is 165-page inspection report is really pretty intense, especially for somebody who's buying a $160,000 house. So I might have a conversation with that home inspector, and I don't know who it is, I don't know anything about him, but your job is to convey the property's condition to my person, not to scare the crap out of them, right? And one of the questions I always asked my home inspector in front of my client, assuming that it was not a complete wreck, was, would you buy this for your daughter? Right. And he would generally say, yeah, I mean, it needs a couple of little things, no big deal, right? But there was also inspections where he'd call me 5 minutes after being in the home and be like, well, there's only one that I can remember. He's like, okay, we got all kinds of problems here. Do you want me to continue? Right. I'll charge you $100 if you want me to leave right now, but I think this home's a mess. You see what I'm saying? And he didn't scare anybody, right? Because at the end of the day, it can all be fixed, right? If you need a new hot water heater or something, or like it's missing a tank, or it's got the wrong, pressure valve or whatever, like it's just money, right? So, hey, you got a problem here, it can be fixed with money. It's just a matter of how much it is and whose money it is. It's no big deal. Just tell me what you want. Let's ask for it. You see what I'm saying? But it's your responsibility to make sure that they don't freak out over things that shouldn't be freaked out about. All right, is everyone with me?
Yeah, and I've been
Yes.
I've been known to ask, if, especially when they're right after the summary, when they go through the summary with my clients, I'll say, so tell us the truth, is this house falling down? And then, they laugh and they go, no, 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 no. And that's very reassuring as well. So
Yeah.
similar to what you do, Bill.
I mean, here's the deal. I don't want my client to buy a junker unless they're totally prepared to deal with a junker, right? Most people are not. And and also, like, I anticipate being that person's point person for real estate for the rest of our lives. Like, I don't want them calling me in a couple years and being like, hey, remember that home that you sold us that's like the steepest driveway in town that had LP siding and a big hole in the roof and blah 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 blah. I'm ready to sell it. I'm like, oh, I don't want that ugly listing, right? I want them to buy a pretty home. Make sense? I'm much more interested in the relationship. Hell, if they buy something, I'll get paid. I don't care what house it is, right? I don't need them to buy that one. If something's wrong with that one, get back in the car. Let's go. I'm very unemotional about it. All right, what have you heard today so far? Oh man, come on now.
I think we should talk about the 2022 buyer agency agreement, where it's changed the wording up a little bit to talk about the buyer potentially paying part of the commission minus anything the seller pays.
Okay, why don't you give us an overview on that, Candace, and I'll give you my feedback.
Okay, it says specifically on item number 4, buyer agrees to pay broker the commission set forth below commission at the closing of the contract to purchase, as that term is hereinafter defined, entered into during the term of this agreement, minus any commission paid to the broker by either the seller's broker or the seller. Buyer acknowledges that the commission, if any, being offered by the seller's broker is usually set forth in the multiple listing service in which the property may be listed. So it's basically changed up now to say, buyer agrees to pay the broker the commission, the very first sentence, minus whatever the seller pays. I had somebody
Okay,
call.
and I will admit
comment.
I have not been to the class, but
Me either.
let me just make sure I'm hearing one thing correctly. So where are the blanks? It says the buyer will pay the commission of what, 3%? And
The
then
B is commission, and that looks exactly the same. It's got a place where you can put in the percent of the sales price, a dollar number, or other. So that's exactly the same. I had somebody call me last night on this, so that's why I'm bringing it up, because I haven't been to the class either.
Okay, so basically the only thing that's different to me is that there used to be a line that says the buyer shall or shall not make up the difference between what is paid and what is written on right on here on this blank.
Correct.
What they basically did is they essentially said that they're paying it.
Yeah.
Is that the way you understand it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it looked like you were reaching for the okay. So to me,
I was reaching for my water, sorry, but.
Okay, that's okay.
But I wanted to, yeah, I definitely wanted to know about this because that's what I seemed like it was a different thing, so.
Okay, so ask it as if you asked the question. Let's just get it all out there and we'll touch on each of the nuances. What was your what were you unsure about, or what were you looking for advice on?
Just, my thing was just, how is it different than it was before, and how are you supposed to explain it to your clients? Because just people are saying, like, no longer can you say, oh, don't worry, you won't be paying anything, this is paid by the seller, kind of thing. So that was just like, how do we make sure we position it correctly, and do we downplay it? Do we make it a big deal? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out.
All right, great question. So there's a couple. This is actually this is a lot packed in here. Okay, the first is just from a 10,000 foot view, guys. This is the evolution of the seller not paying your commission anymore. Okay, this is step 1. So be ready. If we're sitting here in 5 years, 10 years, ain't no way seller's paying commission anymore. You're going to have to fight for whatever number it is on the buy side. So I want you to picture a world in which you are paid by the buyer. Okay. Now, What does this tell us? It tells us, Candace, I'm very curious about your perspective on this. So make sure I'm going to give you the floor too. What I see happening is that just like you have to potentially, establish your value in order to claim a certain commission on the listing side, it probably will not be long before you have to do the same thing on the buy side. So for example, the objection that we sometimes will get on the listing side is, oh, well, I know somebody who will do it for 2% or 2.5% or something like that. And then you have to say, well, what are they not going to do? Or, are they going to market it right or take pictures? Or, if that's the way they negotiate on their equity, then how are they going to, or your equity, how are they going to negotiate on their, all the things that we normally say. What if we have to do that on the buy side too, right? So you meet somebody in an open house and they come out straight and say, hey, what do you charge? And you're like 3%. Hey, this guy will do it for 2.5%. Well, right. So the signs are coming. You guys got to get really, really good at what does that experience look like to help a seller, or in really this scenario, a buyer, through that process. And do you deserve, so to speak, are you earning the amount of money that you're asking to earn? So let this be a warning to you. This is likely coming, where the buyer's agent commission is not just going to be a shoo-in. Y'all see that?
Do you think that though that's partly just the way that the market is? Like, what if it turns back into a buyer's market? Don't you think that will shift some?
Maybe. I'm not. Time will tell. I think there will always be a segment of the market that is willing to pay for a higher level of service or a perceived higher level of service, right? And there will always be a segment of the market that is looking to pay the least, and they either don't care about the result or they're more concerned about the payment, right? Let's take hotels, for example, right? Call me crazy. I could probably afford to spend, $500 a night in a hotel, but I couldn't dream of doing that. What is the point? My eyes are closed when I'm in there, for crying out loud, right? So that's just not me. But plenty of people will do that, right? Cars, clothes, doctors, brokerages. There's always going to be a high end and there's always going to be a lower end. The question is where do you want to be? Right? So do you want to be the person that is providing, a luxury experience or a unique experience, and therefore can charge top dollar? Or do you want to be the person that is either not living in that world, not practicing enough to get there, not thinking big enough to get there, or don't even care, or don't even realize the difference? Then you'll probably end up fighting for your commission every single transaction, right? So yes, I think there will probably, when it's a buyer's market, I could actually argue the opposite, because I would say in a strong seller's market, you need the most talented buyer's agent you can find, right? So, I could see it going a lot of different ways. My point overall was, I think the writing is on the wall here, guys, and you're going to have to prove your value in a much, much more substantial way than you ever had to do as a buyer's agent. Now, in terms of how to explain it to a client, I don't really think you need to go into a ton of detail. The one decision you have to make is, am I willing to help a buyer for whatever price I'm offered to help a buyer? So for example, this past year, right, when a buyer was, let's say you were going to get 2.25% to help a buyer buy, whatever, Open Door or something, right? What did you do? Did you just receive 2.25%? Or did you go back to the buyer's agency agreement and say, hey, we checked here that it would be 3%. And if it's not 3%, then you'd pay the difference. So how did you guys react to a lower than 3% commission in 2021? Did you just take whatever you got? Who wants to answer that? Okay, let's answer both for you. So if you just took what you got, then the new version, what you might say 3%, and then you might have a stipulation that says buyer's agent will agree to be paid whatever the amount is that the sellers are paying. Under no circumstances would the buyer be responsible for making up any shortage or deficiency in commission expected or claimed by buyer's agent. If that's the case, then you just take whatever you get. So if it's 2%, you get 2%. If it's 2.25, you get 2.25. That would be one option. The second option is I want X number of percent, no matter who I help and no matter what property they buy. If that's the case, then you just write 3% there, and the buyer's on notice. Hey, just so you know, the commission that I charge to work is 3%. You know, probably 75% of the opportunities out there are 3%. Should we, and therefore you would not have to make up any shortfall in commission. However, if the commission offered on a particular home that you're curious about is less than that, I will tell you right up front. And if you ultimately decide to pursue that property, then you would be expected to make up the shortfall. In this example, that would be $1,200.
So 3 points I'd like to make is 1, perception is reality. I can't tell you how many buyers I've worked with who have no idea that we typically work for them for free, right? They have no idea who pays the commission. They have no idea how we're paid. So how we explain that is going to be how they receive it. There'll be scripts coming out about it. They'll be probably similar to what the scripts that we use in a listing appointment. Second point is that our world always changes and we always adapt. In real estate, our market always changes and we always adapt. And there will be those who let one obstacle make them not go forward, and there'll be those who plow through the obstacles. This is just one of those. And then the third point is that I forgot what my third point was.
Let me
Anyway,
back on that second point real fast while you collect your thoughts. So
Okay.
You can either have reasons or results, right? The world's going to change. Oh my gosh, people stop faxing things to each other. Are you just going to say, well, gosh, I don't know how to do anything anymore. Like no one's using a fax machine. Or you're going to say, it probably went away because there's something better. So I better go embrace that. Right? Like I was speaking to somebody yesterday and they're like, I'm not a very good tech person. I said, like, how much longer am I supposed to accept you saying that? Like, damn, you can learn anything on YouTube. Go watch a video. Quit telling yourself you're not smart. You see what I'm saying? Like, what's your biggest problem in tech right now? Oh, I don't know how to use Google Drive. Go watch a video on Google Drive. Right? Damn. Then tomorrow, well, I'm still not that great of a person. Okay, well, what's your biggest challenge? Oh, I don't know how to, copy and paste something. Go watch a video on copying and paste something. Let's get better today. Like, you don't define yourself in the past.
Yeah. And my third point was that I actually like this better than the shall or shall not, because it looks like, I mean, if you have to check shall or shall not, it looks like there's some sort of choice or conflict going on, and this one just lays it out very clearly. So this is actually, I think, a much, from a business perspective, a much better written buyer agency agreement.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
And
this is a little less like, because I always check shall not.
Yeah, me too.
Again, because I was far more concerned with the person than how much I got paid. Like I was going to get paid. I wasn't worried about it. And I never wanted my compensation, whether it was 2.25 or 2.75 or 3 or 3.25 or whatever, to impact the home they bought and the way we approached that negotiation. You follow me? And every once in a while, like you can use the, like somebody would say, oh, well, I feel bad that you're only getting 2.75. Okay, well, I appreciate you saying that. You want to send me a referral this year? Why don't you introduce me to somebody you know, and that'll make up for it. Right? I'd rather get paid that way than you writing a check for $1,000. Make sense?
Do you ever think, I'm just looking in the future to the point, like if you said kind of what happens, sellers stop paying commissions for buyers, which, I mean, I can kind of see just because housing prices on houses get so expensive, like that's a lot of money, you know, that a big chunk of change, but
Yeah, I didn't actually think about it that way. I think that might quicken the process, interestingly enough.
yeah, but do you ever see it maybe as, especially for buyers, that either moving towards either people say not a percentage, but here's a flat fee or my hourly fee? I mean, I would think that people would be willing to find a house a lot quicker if it was an hourly fee than people that have been trying to find houses for buyers all year.
Yeah,
You know,
I
like an
absolutely
attorney,
think,
like, you know, if you had a retainer and you're like, all right, well, here's my fee.
And there were,
that's a great point, Ryan. I mean, that is, like Gary Keller says, don't prepare for the market you're in, prepare for the market in which we're headed. I think those are great observations. I think that if, let's say that rule changed overnight, the next day, there'd already be a company that was willing to do it. Hey, I'll do this for $8,000.
yeah, there's
Right.
gonna be discount brokers like Duffy who comes out in response to this, who's like, oh, why are you paying an agent to help you buy a home? I'm gonna do it for this.
Right. I'll do it $50 a door. I'll do $500 to write up the contract. I'll do $200 for every amendment. And, I'll buy your home warranty for you.
Right, like, that's what I'm just saying, like, I feel like that
Again,
definitely, I
that
could see
is,
it, I could see that happening easily.
I can see that happening easily too. Now, it's not going to take the whole market, right? It's like every new idea, iBuyers or We Buy Ugly Homes or any of that stuff, it's going to take a little slice of the market, a very small slice of the market, but it's going to show the world that that model under particular, the numbers could potentially work. Now, let me think of a good way to say this. There will be people who are not interested in that level of service, right? So, for example, let's say Ryan, one of the people that you are, one of your friends in the neighborhood, for example, right? And let's say the family makes a lot of money and they're used to, high-end luxury experiences, and they're used to other people doing stuff for them, and it be in a, kind of a high level, kind of feel, if you will, right? That's what they're used to. They're going to go and get the person who is going to deliver the luxury concierge experience, and they'll be willing to pay for it. It'll just be another shiny object for the people who are, in the race to the bottom. And
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, like, there's so
please
many.
don't hear that the wrong way, on the race to the bottom idea. But if you're fighting over price, you will always find somebody to do it for cheaper, right? Like, I mean, I've told this story before. My wife used to take, pictures of houses. There's not enough money in that anymore. It's not worth it to go out there and, take 45 high-res pictures, spend a few hours editing. It's not worth it for $125. You see what I'm saying? So that's not a model she wants to participate in anymore, right? She went the other direction. She's creating luxury experiences, right? And if you're feeding to the bottom, you're gonna do, it's $150 this time. Okay, well, somebody else said 140. It's 135, and eventually it's like, what are you doing, and why are you giving the money away so fast? You follow me? So you can either decide to service either end of the market. I've said this a long time. Like, I think there's going to be a time in the future where there's going to be two primary providers of real estate services. One is going to be the luxury team, right? You got a specialist for everything. Everything is super, super high end, right? I mean, like, we take care of you like crazy. And then there's going to be okay, well, if you prefer, you can go to Open Door and you'll work as an employee and you'll open their doors for their clients, and we'll pay you a salary, which is basically just enough to keep you coming in every day. Kaya.
What we're going to need, what I suspect we're going to need is a reason for the buyer not to call the listing agent with this.
Good point. I
Yes,
like that.
that's what I was thinking, because I was thinking, if the people can do so much research on their own already, like they can find a home, like really, they just want to see it. And if they can pay for someone just to do a contract, the reason that buyer's agents, I think that people take them in, right now, is just because you don't have to pay for it, essentially.
I think
You're
I
not
think
paying
you're
for
right.
it. But if you're like, okay, well, this will be $30,000, or you just call the listing agent, maybe pay someone a few $100 to write the contract. Like, why would you do that?
Well, I think that goes to what the perceived role for us is. So for example, that's the same discussion that we have with a FSBO. So the FSBO says, well, why do I need you? Like, I can just put it on the market and I'll get an offer. And I told you guys a long time ago, yeah, you're right. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about whether you're going to get an offer or not. I have every confidence you're going to get an offer. I'm worried about whether it's going to be a good offer, whether it protects you, whether you know how to handle it from that point forward, whether you are going to get in trouble from a safety standpoint or a liability standpoint, whether you're going to net the most dollars. That's why I'm involved. I'm not involved to help you find the home. Gosh, you got internet too, right? So if you give the impression to the buyer that your job is to find the home and that's your primary role, and then they end up finding the home, they're going to think you're overpaid. Right? And they likely will be finding the home because they're on the clicker all day and they only have one client, so to speak. You got a bunch of clients. So while I'm focusing on Joe, who wants to buy in Smyrna, Sarah, who wants to buy in Duluth, is looking for her own home, and she's likely to find it before me. But if Sarah thinks that I'm paid to help her find the home and she found the home, she's like, well, last time my buyer's agent got 3% and I found the home. So you got to tell them, hey, you may find the home. Okay. However, this is who I'm in partnership with. These are all the things that can go wrong. This is how I protect you along the way. This is what I'm doing for you day in and day out. And then they start to realize that it's worthwhile. Kaya, what were you saying?
I guess this is kind of like a two-parter on it. I've got, I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, people who, when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, have issues even covering their closing costs. So I couldn't imagine these people now taking on the role of trying to pay me. Like some of them, and then on the other side of it, if I'm on the listing side, should I now be trying to tell people like, okay, well, they can be responsible for the other person's commission? Or should I still try to be rolling in saying the 6% to try to cover the other person's half?
I personally would not change the way I approach the listing commission. So that's my way I would address the second part of what you said. The first part of what you said is that's a little bit more difficult, right? I think use your exact words again.
I've had a few of my clients that it's like when we got down to the nitty gritty, they were needed a little more time so they could get one more check-in so they could cover their closing costs. And these are not the type of people who now have an extra $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 to pay me.
I suspect that if that became the norm, there would be some type of pivot in the marketplace that would make that more palatable.
Because I'm like, and it's unfair because essentially it's doing what everything is always done, which is basically trotting down on the people who can't afford it. They're already in a hard position. And now you're essentially telling them that they're not going to get the same service that everybody else can get because they can't afford to pay a real estate agent.
That was going to be my point too, Bill.
Yeah, therein lies that goes a lot deeper and a lot more problematic. Go ahead, Markia.
No, I was just saying if that becomes the case, and with the first time home buyer, do you think that there will be kind of like discounts, more discounts given to lenders? Because I do feel like, or more programs for first time home buyers to assist with down payment assistance so that they will be able to afford to even close with taking into consideration of paying a buyer's agent commission.
I would think so. There's a lot of different factors that go into that, right? There's obviously political factors that go into that. There is you know, I'm recovering. I'm a recovering ADD person, right? I think I found the right medicine, but I'm not quite there. So I happen to be reading a few books right now. So in addition to the one I was telling you about, I'm also reading The Color of Law, which just kind of makes me want to cry all the time, right? Have you guys read that?
No.
Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Tracy, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know the book.
Yeah, so it's basically a it's basically an expose about every more or less how most major cities have developed post World War II, and even some stuff prior to World War II, with respect to God, I'm like almost afraid to give like a book summary, like with respect to local and state and federal policies on what types of mortgages were available and who was available for, you know, who could get them, whether, what race they were, where different parts, different races kind of ended up in terms of like geography based on redlining and whether mortgages were available and whether HOA restrictions allowed different people to reside together, and, you know, laws that have technically been on the books for 150 years that have more or less been ignored, right? I mean, there is all kinds of just disappointment after disappointment, right? This is another, potentially another example of that. Is it could make it harder for people of modest means to be homeowners, right? It's got nothing to do with, that comment has nothing to do with race. You know, and you can argue it the other way too, right? Which is, hey, if you can't even afford closing cost, like maybe you shouldn't be buying right now, right? Right? If you need down payment assistance, maybe you shouldn't be buying. That's one argument. I could make a fairly decent argument for that. And I could also make the opposite argument, which is, why don't we create all these programs and grants and opportunities so people of all races and people of all income levels can get into this, right? But then you have other challenges too, which are like, what happens if the person gets the down payment assistance and the grant and all that kind of thing, and then the HVAC busts and it's a $5,000 problem and they don't have $5,000? What happens then? Right? So there's just a lot. It can get really heavy, right? And you know, when people recognize dilemmas in the marketplace, they look for solutions, right? And that's why things like Homeward came about. That's why things like Knock came about, right? They say, hey, sellers are having a hard time selling and then buying, or buying before they sell, or they need 20 grand to do some fixing up. So let's go create a product that makes that easier, right? I mean, most companies now are almost turning into lenders or banks, right? Knock went from doing what they did 5 years ago. They're basically a bank right now, right? So there might be a service that comes along and says, hey, first-time home buyers, we'll loan you the down payment, we'll loan you the closing costs, and we'll charge you this amount of interest.
Or maybe
I
mortgages.
need to go start that service immediately.
Yeah, you go buy the domain name. I'll help you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious.
They do have it, but people don't realize that it's in the form of a second mortgage that they have to pay back on top of their mortgage that they have to pay already.
Well, I mean, that comes from education on a local level. And I mean, it's obviously not free. Like, if you don't have the money, then you have to follow the rules of the person who has the money. I'm not saying I agree with that. This is the reality. Like, how do you want to, it ain't free. So
People don't know it's not free though with the down payment assistance. They just think that it's free money until they realize, like, oh, I have to pay this money back.
Well, that's part of the education, right? That's part of fishing out of the big pond, right? You throw a big message out there. Hey, these things are available. If you want to learn more, let's talk.
Well,
right?
And I think also that there are laws around protecting buyers. I mean, our contracts typically our purchase and sale contract protects buyers more so than sellers.
Way more so than sellers.
And I think there'll be some product, maybe it'll be that they can roll the agent fee into the realtor fee into their mortgage. There'll be some way that they can still have a realtor, because nobody wants a buyer to be taken advantage of. So there'll be some products coming out, and there's probably already people working on, well, I know there's people working on this.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about it. I think it's just an explanation that has to happen that we didn't have to explain before. That's really all it is.
Well, I think this highlights again the importance of two things primarily. One is just like I would assume every person on this call and every person who ever might listen to this, wealth building and financial security has got to be top of mind, right? Given the society that we live in and all the rules and how the rules are followed or not followed, how can I make sure every day I'm putting myself in a position to have more flexibility, more options, more stability? Make sense? So first of all, you got to learn the rules of the game. Okay, I don't even like calling it a game, but from 10 to 12 today, Bob Kalinsky is going to be explaining just that. Okay, these are some of the foundational pieces for starting that journey if you're not on that journey, right? The other thing is to be sensitive to these challenges, right? There are literally people who like can't even afford the home inspection, right? So are there programs for that? I mean, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but like if somebody's goal is to be a homeowner, then their behaviors have got to be in line with that, right? So, you know, I've seen plenty of agents that blow all kinds of money on things that I think are silly and then can't afford a class that costs $100, right? And if I would ask them, hey, don't you want to go to the class? Oh, I can't afford it, but I saw they had like bottle service that weekend, right? They're just choosing other things, right? So part of our work in the community is to help those that want the help, right? And create programs or be a part of the creation of programs or be a part of the research on what programs are available. Like Markia suggested, the education piece, right? I can't solve all the problems, but I can try to be sensitive to them. Does that make sense? If you guys have not read that book, The Color of Law, it's a really hard read, to be honest. I never understood just kind of how terrible it is. That's an understatement, but I just don't know if I have the words for it. It's just a matter of like, I'm going to help everyone I can possibly help. And that's that. I know we went on I'm walking the edge here. Is everyone okay? Tracy?
Doing fine.
Doing fine. Tracy, you want to add anything to that based on the fact that you've read the book? Any comments? What?
No comments.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to focus on driving right now, Bill.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I got you. Kai, did I address your thoughts?
Like I could say some more stuff, but it's like I don't want us to get off topic, you know, and get deep into this because it's obviously not what the meeting is about. But it's like even about you, like it's like I hadn't read this book, but it's like I guess it's like I feel like I don't have to read the book if I'm out here experiencing it personally. Like, I mean, not knocking, you know, I'm glad that you read it to like further educate yourself. And it's like, but you saying about them having like the bottle service or whatever, $500-600, even if they're spending $1,000, it's still not $12,000-13,000, you know? And it's like, telling people we have to just kind of wait until they're ready. But then in some cases, once they get into a home, their mortgage is less than what their rent would have been. So it's like, it puts them in a better position, you know?
Yeah,
once they get into a house. It's dicey.
Oh, totally. And what I meant by that is it's all about choices, right? Everyone gets to make the choices they make each day. And when you make choices that are in line with the big goals that you have, that are going to put you in a better place long term, then every day you're making improvements. And if ultimately your choices are not in line with those long-term goals, then you're going to be putting yourself in a worse position day by day. That's really what I was trying to say. There's no there was no nothing deeper than that. There's no like, hopefully y'all didn't hear that. There's no like racial overtones or anything like that. It's look, people make decisions and then they have to live with the results of their decisions, right? Some people are like you suggested, let's say you're a first-time home buyer right now and you can afford a $200,000 house and you've been saving for closing costs and down payment. And by the time you're ready, it's a strong seller's market and you're losing to cash offers all day. Like that's the reality, right? So I don't know what to do to address that other than helping that person know that that's the reality, and then coming up with possible solutions, possibly with the help of other organizations, put themselves in a spot that they can win, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, can I add to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just with me being a property manager, and I've been in property management 11 years now, and this last year was actually the worst year that I've ever seen. And another reason why I'm deciding to leave is because they actually just recently, the typical rent increase is like 3 to 5%. This is my first time ever seeing 18 to 30% increases on people rent, which puts me in a very uncomfortable place. Because it's unfortunate that people, paycheck is not going up, but their rent is. Not to mention that we only let them know 60 days prior, which a lot of people in their mind are like, well, this is the price of a mortgage, but then they don't take into consideration or don't have enough time to prepare and plan to pay for closing costs or down payment assistance. So sometimes I feel like people are kind of put in a uncomfortable and unpredictable situation, because if they try to go to another apartment complex in the area, what we're offering them 30% or 25% is still way less than what the market is. So it just kind of put people in a situation like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I can afford to a mortgage, but I can't afford 60 days prior to for a down payment on top of closing costs. So I just have to take this rent increase. So more than anything, I definitely feel like education is key, especially get to people at least 60 days prior and just let them know exactly what's going on in the market.
I think our responsibility there as a real estate agent, thank you for sharing that, is we got to get them as soon as possible. Meaning we have to make sure that like you can never be too early to grow and maintain and develop a relationship, right? So I want to be the person that person who just got a 18% rent increase. I want to have been talking to them about the fact that, hey, you're probably hearing in the news that rents are going to go up. It's probably going to be more than the 3 or 5% this year, right? Let's run some numbers right now so that you can be more prepared to make those decisions later on, right? Whether you stay or take the rent increase or move to a different community or whatever, right? So if that's why I've always said, I want everybody to say to themselves in my world, hey, I don't make real estate decisions without talking to Bill. I don't care if I rent a place, own a place, doesn't make a difference. Whenever I'm faced with a decision that needs to be made, I go consult the person who I make those decisions with. Make sense? Because the devil's advocate to what you just said, Markia, is that person who receives an 18% rent increase with 30 days notice has, I could argue, is not preparing themselves from an educational standpoint ahead of time to best react to that, right? They're just kind of living, and whatever happens to them, they have to react, right? They're not taking ownership of, hey, I heard that, there's a pretty substantial difference between people that are homeowners and not homeowners in net worth. I'd like to be in this category. So I'm going to spend time learning about money, learning about investments, learning about savings, building the appropriate habits, these kind of things, so that I can navigate those challenges and build my decision-making team as early as possible. Does that make sense? So they got to take ownership of, hey, there's going to be some tough decisions I might have to make in the near future. What can I learn about today that'll make those decisions easier to make? Right? And not just wait for a letter to come in the mail so that then they panic. I feel like I've been an idiot today. Have I been an idiot?
You have not. No, not at all.
Okay. Candace, did you want to add anything?
No, I think this has been a good morning. I think we talked about some good things
Yeah, I mean,
or uncomfortable things. Let me say it that
hey, we I mean, all this stuff that we're talking about is happening right now. Like it is a major factor in our world. I mean, there's a book called White Flight. Have you guys ever read that book? We have a pretty disgusting history. I mean, the Grady curve, you know what that's all about? Goes right through Edgewood, right through Martin Luther King's, space, essentially, right? We have a pretty lousy history. So our job is to go out there and with the right attitude and the right heart, have an educational spirit and help those that need our help. And be concerned way, way more, let's tie this back into commissions and contracts, being way, way more concerned with helping people get what they need or deserve or desire, rather than whether we're going to get paid 2.25 for it or 2.5 for it, right? Let's just go out and do the right thing by a bunch of people, and we'll make so much money we don't even know what to do with it.
I think that's a great note. A great comment.
Okay, anyone else want to add anything?
It's all about being of service, right?
Yeah,
And-
I was talking to Drew. I don't think he'll mind if I share this yesterday. He basically said, my attitude for this year is I'm going into every room I go into, and I'm basically going to say, how can I help you achieve your goals this year? I'm leading with them. I'm not even talking about myself. I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey, Kaya, you got a lot of stuff on your plate. How can I help you? What are you working on? What can I do to help you? Got any challenges you're facing? I got a lot of people in my network. I'd like to help you. And you'll end up doing a lot of things that have got nothing to do with real estate, but that man will sell a lot of homes next year or this year. Does that make sense? What can you do for those in your community rather than what's in it for you? Right? Is this a good talk today? All right, so make sure you register for Bob Kalinsky's chat at 10 o'clock. It is his own link or whatever. You just got to register for it. It's free. And what was the other thing I wanted to chat about?
Have you received the link back yet? After you registered? I know, I think Michael was asking about it yesterday.
He did.
I did.
He did.
I
And I
receive
just
the link.
got